Isn't it a great day to be a Christian? Open your Bibles to John chapter 10. John chapter 10. Title of the lesson this morning is I Just Want to Be a Sheep. The question is, why? Sheep are notably dumb, and they're defenseless, and they're boring, so why would we want to be a sheep? Well, how we answer that question will have quite a bit to do with our relationship with God. So let's look at John chapter 10, see what John writes about sheep. John 10:1 says, Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And the stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake Jesus unto them, but they understood not what things they were, which he spake unto them. Then said Jesus unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out, and find pasture. The thief cometh not, but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is a hireling, and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth, because he is a hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Used to work in an elementary school. It was a Christian school, and once a week we'd have a preacher from a neighboring congregation. He'd come in and he'd lead singing for the elementary school kids. And one of the songs that he led that gets stuck in your mind is, I just want to be a sheep. And I'm not going to sing it for you this morning. Be thankful that I'm not going to sing it. But the chorus of that song says, I just want to be a sheep. Bye. I just want to be a sheep. Bye. Pray the Lord my soul to keep. Bye. I just want to be a sheep. And it goes on to say, I don't want to be a goat. Nope. I don't want to be a goat. Nope. Because they ain't got any hope. Nope. I don't want to be a goat. And in several verses, one says, I don't want to be a hypocrite because they're not hip with it. And another one says, I don't want to be a Pharisee because they're not fair, you see. And the last verse says, I don't want to be a Sadducee because they're so sad, you see. But it always comes back to the chorus, I just want to be a sheep. Couldn't God have picked something better than sheep for us to be like? Out of all God's animals, sheep may be the least able to take care of themselves. Think about it. Have you ever turned on the TV to watch somebody and his fabulous sheep performing tricks or doing anything? Have you ever seen a farmer teach his sheep to roll over or baa on command or any of those things? No, because sheep are just too dumb. They're defenseless. They don't have any fangs or claws. Sheep can't outrun you. They don't have wings. They can't fly away. How many sports teams do you see that have sheep for their mascots? We've got the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. Why not the San Diego Sheep or the LA Lambs? That's not what you want to think about. That's not what think about. What kind of cheers would you have for teams like that? We're the sheep. We don't make a peep. Count on us when you're trying to sleep. There's just not very much good about sheep. And yet God says we're sheep. That's not a compliment. Sheep are not very impressive creatures. They're not fighters. They don't have much to brag about. And the church is supposed to be made up of good sheep. Because of that, a lot of times the world overlooks the church because the world wants more excitement. The world wants more pizzazz and more power. They want to be able to get ahead, and well, sheep just basically are followers. They're not trying to get ahead. They're just following the shepherd. So why do I want to be a sheep? Well, in reality, we don't have a choice. We are sheep. God says we're sheep, whether we want to be or not. That's how He created us. He created us to be His followers. Some of His sheep have gone astray and they've decided to follow somebody or something else. If you look closely at other people's lives, everybody is following something. Even the people we consider leaders are following something. Maybe it's a philosophy, or maybe it's riches or power. Maybe it's because they believe they'll be happier if they make more money. We mentioned Andrew Carnegie this morning. He said, millionaires who laugh are rare. They're following money, but it's not doing anything for them. It's not making them happy. They think it'll give them more influence, it'll give them more power, but they keep following that almighty dollar. Other people follow the crowd. They're into the party scene. They're looking for the latest new drug, the latest thing that'll give them a new thrill, the latest high. Well, how well does that work out for them? Look at some of the stories about celebrities just in the last few weeks and how following the thrill doesn't work out. But people are natural born followers. They're following after something. They're building their lives around something. You know people that follow things. Maybe they follow auto racing or horse racing or some sports teams. And you can tell they follow that because they got a collection of all these things about their specific hobby or interest or whatever it is. They're passionate about it. They're following that. They're being sheep. But the Bible tells us two things about being a sheep. Number one, it doesn't matter what else you follow. If you're not following Jesus, you're not really going anywhere. You're not really going to make any progress. Isaiah 53:6 says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We've turned everyone to his own way. So unless we're following Jesus, we're not making any progress. We're just kind of wandering around aimlessly. We don't have any direction. Second thing is, unless Jesus is your shepherd, you're not really going to be happy and content. Following all these other things is not going to bring you joy. Now, it may bring pleasure, but it's not going to bring true joy. Look at Matthew chapter 9. Matthew chapter 9, Jesus is speaking or he's talking about Jesus in verse 35. Matthew 9:35 says, and Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. Look at verse 36. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep, having no shepherd. They were directionless. They were aimless. So let's spend a few minutes this morning talking about those two facts. First of all, if Jesus is not your shepherd, you're not really going anywhere in this life. There's no religion in the world like Christianity for making your life count for something. Now, we may be a bunch of sheep. We may not be flashy or anything like that, but as long as we're following the shepherd, we're able to accomplish good things. I read about a preacher that was a member of the Rotary Club. And the Rotary Club, each week at their meeting, they'd pick a different individual that was a member. They'd have him stand up and tell about himself, who he was, where he worked, what he did. Somebody might stand up and say, I'm John Jones, I'm the president of the First National Bank, and we've got this many branches and this, that, and the other. Well, it was the preacher's turn, and he stood up and said this, hi, I'm Bob Smith, and I'm with a global enterprise. We have branches in every country in the world. We have representatives in nearly every parliament and board on earth. Our founder owns all the real estate on earth, plus all the galaxies, constellations in the universe. He knows everything and lives everywhere. We're into motivation and behavior alteration. We run hospitals, soup kitchens, crisis pregnancy centers, universities, publishing houses, and nursing homes. We care for our clients from birth to death. We offer life insurance and fire insurance. We perform spiritual heart transplants. Our product is free for the asking, but that's a good because there's not enough money to buy it. Okay? All those things come about because people follow Jesus as their shepherd. They want to do good. They want to make a difference in the world. But not everybody believes that. I read about a debate from 1929. It was between the president of the American Association of the Advancement of Atheism. It's a man named Charles Smith, and I started seeing these quotes. I looked up the debate. It's only 98 pages long. I've added that to my reading list for the coming week. But anyway, they're talking about morality, and this man, Mr. Smith, said that atheism is a better grounds for morality than the Bible. Well, the man that debated against him was a man named W.L. Oliphant. And Brother Oliphant was a preacher at the Oak Creek Church of Christ in Dallas, Texas. And they stood up and they debated about where do we get more morality? What's the basis of how we behave in society? And Brother Oliphant said this. He said, if you want people to remember, I want you people to remember that though Mr. Smith is supposed to be affirming that atheism is conducive to good morals, he has not said one word in defense of the morality of atheism. He's done nothing but attack Christianity. This method of debating is in harmony with the whole program of atheism. It's entirely destructive. In the few minutes I have left, I shall introduce a few of the principles of morality taught in the New Testament. And it went on to say this. Christ teaches avoiding hatred, Matthew 5, 21 and 22. No lustful thinking, Matthew 5, 28. No unfair judgments, Matthew 7, 1 and 2. Love your enemies, Matthew 5, 44. Reconciliation, Matthew 5, 24. Non-resistance, Matthew 5, 38 and 39. Avoid anxiety, Matthew 6, 25 and 29. Self-examination, Matthew 7, 3 through 5. Respect for government, Romans 13, 1 through 7. The equality of man, James 2, 1 through 4. The universal brotherhood, Matthew 23, 9. Forgiveness, Mark 11, 25. Thrift and industry, Ephesians 4, 28. What Brother Oliphant was basically saying is Christianity is not about me. Christianity is not about you. Christianity is about following the shepherd. Christianity is about following Jesus, listening to his voice, and letting what he says rule our lives. That's the way we can accomplish things of lasting value if we're following the Good Shepherd. A lot of things in the world are all about me and mine and what I want. And we've created all these idols that we're worshiping, and we're following them instead of following Jesus. But we were created to have a higher purpose in life. We were created not to satisfy our own needs, but to serve those round about us. We're supposed to be serving God. We're supposed to be living for him. Christianity, Jesus said, that's supposed to mean that we're the salt of the earth. We're the light of the world. We're supposed to be doing things that make a difference to those round about us. Believers in Christ have started hospitals and pregnancy centers and orphans' homes and nursing homes and homes for abandoned people. All these things, why? Because they're serving others as they follow the Good Shepherd. Now that's quite a lot of accomplishments for a bunch of sheep. But it's not because we're powerful sheep, it's because we follow a powerful shepherd. That's why Paul said this. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 15. 1 Corinthians 15, Paul is expressing his confidence. He says, in verse 58, therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Paul says if you're doing things that Jesus wants you to do, if you're following the Good Shepherd, anything that you're doing in His will is going to last. It's not going to be in vain. You're doing things that make a difference as long as you're following Jesus. So point number one, if you're not following Jesus, you're not going to go anywhere in life. Point number two is, unless Jesus is your shepherd, you're not going to have the power to be truly happy and content. Now, I didn't say that if you're not a Christian, you can't be happy. There are a lot of people that are happy as long as life is going the way they want to, as long as their health is good, as long as they enjoy their job and the sky is blue and people love us. Everybody's happy then. But what happens when life goes silent? What happens when you lose your job? When you lose your friends? When your finances are in the tank? When your health starts falling apart? What happens when all your dreams kind of go away? Even Christians have problems sometimes when all the things seem to be against us. Jesus warned us that life would be like that. Look up Matthew 6. Matthew chapter 6, Jesus is talking. This is part of His Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 6, beginning in verse 19, He says this, "Lay up, not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." When our treasure is on earth, and that treasure is taken away, we lose our happiness, we lose our joy. He warned us the danger of following the things of the earth. In fact, whether you're a Christian or not, life is going to have rough spots. Life is going to have bad times. Life is going to be difficult. But there's a secret to being content when that happens. Look at Philippians chapter 4. Philippians chapter 4, Paul gives us the secret for being content when life's falling apart. Philippians 4, starting in verse 11, Paul says, "I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content." Paul says, "I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full, to be hungry, both to abound, and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me." Paul learned the secret to being content even when things were going against him. When things were good, he was content. When things weren't good, he was content. The secret was to be following the Good Shepherd. The secret was to be in Jesus. Paul said the secret is that he could do all things through Christ, who strengthened him. That's why Jesus' comment in our text in John 10 is so important. It's so comforting. John 10:14, Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep." Jesus laid down His life for us. He went to the cross for us, and He asked us to follow Him. He loved us enough to die for us. Do we love Him enough to live for Him? A man named F.B. Meyer wrote this about shepherds. The Oriental shepherd was always ahead of his sheep. He was down in front. Any attack upon the sheep had to take him into account. Now our God is down in front. He is in our tomorrows. I like that phrase. He's in our tomorrows. God knows what's going to happen to us tomorrow. He's got a plan. All we have to do is follow the Good Shepherd to go where He wants us to go. That's what David was talking about in the 23rd Psalm. Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd." I'm following Him. It says, "I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness." Am I following Him? He's leading me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. David said, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Why was David not afraid? For thou art with me. As long as we're with Jesus, as long as we're following him, as long as we're following the Good Shepherd, we have that promise. David knew that as long as he was following the Good Shepherd, that the Shepherd would be there in his tomorrow. He was going to be there wherever he was going. But people that have never obeyed the gospel don't have that promise. They're not following the Good Shepherd. They don't have a promise that he's going to be there for them tomorrow. They don't have the promise of somebody walking with them through the valley of the shadow of death. And the day will come when they're going to be on their own and everything's going to be gone and they'll be all alone. Over and over again, we've talked about how can people go through this that don't have any hope? How can people go through this without believing that there's going to be another life, that there's going to be another world? If we don't have that hope, if we don't have that faith, it's going to be harder for us to go through, and that's going to happen to everybody. Look at John chapter 16, verse 33. John 16:33, Jesus is talking. He says this, in the world ye shall have tribulation. It doesn't matter who you are, Christian or not. Jesus said, in the world, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have problems. But that isn't the end of the story. Jesus said that, but he wasn't finished. The verse says, in the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Our shepherd is leading us to a heavenly home. I read about an American tourist that was touring out in the Mideast, and the group came upon a bunch of shepherds. They got off the bus and they went down to see these shepherds as they were tending their sheep. There were several shepherds together. All the sheep had gathered together to drink from a brook. One of the shepherds got up and he walked away a little bit. He turned around and says, "Mana, mana." And apparently that means follow me in Arabic. But he said that, and his sheep separated themselves from the rest of the sheep, and they took off and followed him home. So a little while later, another shepherd got up and said, "Mana, mana," and his sheep came out of the flock and followed him as he went back, taking them home. And the tourist was just amazed. He said, "Can I try that?" And the shepherd there grinned at him and said, "Yeah, you can try." So he got off there and he started saying, "Mana, mana, mana, mana." And guess what happened? Nothing, because the sheep knew the shepherd's voice. They knew who was taking care of them. They knew who was providing for them. They knew who to follow. Not every shepherd that's leading us is leading us to green pastures. There's some that would lead us to the slaughter. Whose sheep are you? Go back to John 10. This time start reading down in verse 26. John 10:26, Jesus is talking. He says, "But ye believe not, because ye are not of my sheep. As I said unto you, my sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand." The Bible tells us we're all sheep. We're all following something. Are we following the right shepherd? Some people follow their passions and desires. Some people follow great leaders. Some people follow the teachings of man. There's only one good shepherd that was willing to lay down his life for his sheep. Now, if you follow him, you're still going to have trouble in your life, but you're not going to have to face it alone, because he said he will be there with us. Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice, and they follow me." Have you heard his voice? Are you following him? You need to be a Christian. It's the only life worth living, the only death one would dare to die. If you are a Christian, are you still following Jesus? Are you walking in the light as he is in the light? You need to change paths this morning. If you do, won't you do it right now as we stand together and as we sing.